Welcome to the Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the long-feared layoffs hit the Seattle Amazon tech area. We'll tell you all about it, but before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
That's just autopilot. Former Governor Jay Inslee.
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Apparently has been tweeting from Idaho. I mean, he doesn't live in Idaho. He's not living in Idaho. His office denies that he moved to Idaho, but Jay Inslee's account yesterday, and our friend Matt, listener to the show, sent us a screenshot of it because he tweeted something, and then it was quickly deleted. He tweeted test. Kevin, you've seen my social media stuff for a long time now. You've seen it. Do I ever put something like that out there? That's not something we do. I do other bad stuff, but not that, right?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Just one word test. You know what that normally is? That's normally a staffer trying to make sure their login worked or that they're linked up for a podcast or some like Hootsuite program. Hootsuite is when you can post to multiple things at one time.
I was going to say, or someone has made an email chain and decided to send a test to see, hey, is this working? Is everyone getting this?
Exactly. One does not normally need to do that on their own account. So he wrote test, and our friend Matt, who sent this to us, wrote, "You still suck. There's your test," which is just the best thing ever. Best thing ever. Matt Gilbert, I award you 20 comedy points today. But then it was quickly deleted. Does this mean former Washington Governor Jay Inslee is considering another run for office? Does this mean he's going to start a podcast or become a political pundit? We don't know. But I will say is probably every Democrat is furious at Jay Inslee today. And you go, why are they mad at a former governor of Washington? Jay Inslee has put his foot in his mouth before, but today was something special. So I think for today, I'm going to bring back my Jay Inslee impression. I know everybody has missed this so much, but I want you to get the tweet that he put out last night in the full Jay Inslee capacity. So here we go. You ready? In the midst of the ice horror, the Senate needs to prohibit Trump from using ICE as a voter suppression tool. Senate Democrats need to put in the Appropes bill a prohibition on ICE agents being near polling places. This is a must-have. Last chance to do it. Hang on, can we back up and do that in a normal voice for a second here? In the midst of the ICE horror, the Senate needs to prohibit Trump from using ICE as a voter suppression tool. Senate Democrats need to put in the appropriations bill a prohibition on ICE agents being near polling places. This is a must-have, last chance to do this. Why would ICE need to be at polling places unless they're stopping illegal aliens from voting? Did Jay Inslee just say the quiet part out loud that illegal aliens are voting? So what he needs the Democrats to do is put something in an appropriations bill, which, by the way, appropriations means money. Why would you need to stop ICE from being at polling places if you're a Democrat? Oh, I get it. You don't want them stopping illegal aliens from voting. That's what's going on. So did Jay Inslee just admit that he knows that illegal aliens are voting at polling places? By the way, this thing has 1.4 million views on it. 1.4 million. If you were wondering why the Democrats are so spun up on ICE, guess what? They just said the quiet part out loud thanks to Jay Inslee. Yeah, our very own Washington. I bet you a whole bunch of Democrats are mad right now because now this has gone viral and now this is injected into the conversation. And I see big names commenting on it. I see big names sharing it. Now we know why they're doing it. Do you think this is enough to take away the distraction of what's going on in Minneapolis? Do you think? You think every Democrat right now did that thing from Naked Gun 33 and a third where they just slapped their head? That big montage of everybody slapping their heads because Jay Inslee said the quiet part out loud. I was on Newsmax earlier today, and they put up next to me, because I see on the tiny little screen I have in front of me when I'm on TV, they put up a map of the United States showing how many congressional seats are being lost from blue states and how many are being gained from red states. I noticed that Washington, if trends continue going the direction they're going in the 2030 census, is going to lose a seat. That hasn't happened in a while. And what I said on Newsmax was I was kind of not surprised, but surprised all at the same time by this, because during COVID, I was shocked that people were still moving to Washington. Then when I dug into the numbers, even with all our COVID restrictions and everything else, I realized what was going on. Californians were fleeing California. They were going to Florida a little bit, but the majority of them were going to Austin, Texas, and Seattle, Washington area, because they still want to be in a blue state with all the liberal values, but their voting record had destroyed California and they wanted out of there, so they came up here. So we had actually a net migration increase during COVID, which is insane to me given the insane lockdown mandates that they had here and how much longer they lasted than the rest of the country. But people were still moving here who were left. We got over 1 million Californians moving to Washington. Well, now we're losing 40 taxpayers a day because Bob Ferguson and the Democrats have screwed up so bad. We'll discuss more about Bob Ferguson and the Democrats later in the show. But they have made things so bad here that now people are leaving because the jobs are leaving, and you get stuck with the situation you have here now where people can't get a job and they want to go somewhere else, and the taxes are so high, and now they're considering a state income tax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And when you have a net migration loss like that, where you're losing people for the first time in our state's history, congratulations to Bob Ferguson and to the Democrats for that one, you start saying, wait a minute, we have a real problem here. We need to tax more people. They're not doing a check and saying, hey, maybe this was a bad idea. Maybe we need to fix this. Maybe we need to go in a different direction. No. Instead, it's distract. Over the summer, a poll was released from Cascade PBS. Hang on. Let me go to my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy here. Let's see what I got here. Daily Caller, Daily Wire, Fox News, Newsmax. I do not have Cascade PBS in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. But if you look at the numbers there, Bob Ferguson's poll numbers are a disaster, an absolute disaster. And I assume they have not gotten better, because they've decided to tax everything they possibly could in the world. Only 32% of voters at the time would rate Ferguson's first 6 months as excellent or good. Those are probably members of the unions that got him elected. That's 8 points lower than Jay Inslee's first 6 months rating, 11 points lower than Christine Gregoire's, and 20 points lower than Greg Locke's approval. 22% of respondents said Ferguson was doing a fair job. 31% said he was doing a poor job. I guarantee you those numbers have not improved. They don't do polling on governors as often as we would like. So what happens? Bob Ferguson is in full spin mode. Remember that press conference we played you clips of the other day, where he starts weighing in on what is happening with ICE in Minneapolis? It's not happening here. Somebody said to me, oh, Washington is definitely going to be ICE's next target. They're already here. They're already doing what they do. If you're a social media person, follow ERO Seattle on X or the ICE account for Seattle's division of ICE. Follow it. You know why? You're going to see exactly who they're picking up. And you're talking about rapists, murderers, child molesters. But the activists don't necessarily know where they are because they're a little bit more subtle out here. Katie Daviscourt has been posting videos of ICE doing its thing out here. Bob Ferguson admitted in that press conference he had no power to do anything about this at all. At all. But he made it his mission to say, and we're going to hire new people, and we're going to get attorneys, and we're going to write strongly worded letters to the manager. Today, just an hour ago, he comes out with this. You ready? I'm making changes in our organization to help us coordinate our efforts in regard to ICE activity in Washington State. Sarah Peterson, the director of the Office of Refugee and Immigrant Assistance, will begin attending cabinet meetings. Great. What does that mean? She's going to show up to a meeting. Great. That'll do something. This builds on my creation of the Immigration Sub-Cabinet. What does that even mean? I also hired David Kim, a senior advisor, to work specifically on immigrant and refugee policy issues. So you have 800 lawyers working for you at the Attorney General's office. You need to hire somebody else for all of this? Give me a break. This is nonsense. What is Bob Ferguson doing? Trying to distract from his bad poll numbers. In fact, he's doing anything he can to distract from the fact that he's about to pass more high taxes, businesses are leaving, and his poll numbers are an absolute disaster. You ready for this post? Thank you to the Washington State Council of Firefighters for hosting me this week. We're reminded again and again the value of service from our first responders, whether that's in the recent historic flooding or last year's wildfires. Grateful for our firefighters. Excuse me, point of order. How many firefighters did you terminate in 2020 because they wouldn't get the jab? How many first responders did you terminate in 2020 because they wouldn't get the jab? You talk about first responders. How many police officers did you personally try to demonize and prosecute? And where were you as Attorney General during the summer of love? You were MIA while there was a war on cops and first responders. Spare me your nonsense. Oh, wait, I got this one here. He's doing anything he can to distract from what's going on in Olympia. Here we go. This is how desperate he is. Ready for this? On Holocaust Remembrance Day, we remember the 6 million Jewish individuals and millions of others who died in the Holocaust. Washington must always remember the terrible events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny in order to ensure tragedies of the past are never repeated. Was that a Trump reference there? Is he trying to say tyranny, Trump, Nazi, ICE, Nazi? Is that what he's trying to say? We denounce anti-Semitism. We stand with Jewish Americans. There is no place in Washington for hate. Spare me. We all saw what happened at University of Washington, your alma mater, while you were the Attorney General. You didn't say jack squat. Even the Seattle Times called you out on it during your endorsement meeting, and you couldn't even answer the question. It was a worse word salad than anything Kamala Harris ever did because you know that the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic organizations were the ones backing you. You never said anything about the masked Hamasniks in the streets, the violent Gaza encampment at the University of Washington. This is how desperate he is. He's trying to play the hits, except he has no track record of actually doing any of this stuff, and any record he does have is bad. Really, really bad. He is so desperate to distract from the fact that the economy is dying, Washington is in a recession right now, jobs are leaving, and more people are leaving the state, and he's about to pass an income tax to make it work. This is his plan. This is what the Democrats are doing here in Olympia, and it's insane. Actually, tomorrow, we're going to be broadcasting the show live from Olympia. Young Zach and I are heading down there. We're actually going to be down there covering the floor and covering what's going on. You want to know how desperate they are not to have me down there? They issued press passes to lots of other people for tomorrow, not to me. I don't go down to the Washington State Legislature often. I think this will actually be the most amount of times I've ever been there in a session. I went down there last week to testify on one bill, did no interviews whatsoever, spoke to a few legislators I knew. That was it because they happened to see me in the halls, and I was out. I'm not going down there and following people around with a microphone. That's not my beat. Other people do that more effectively. Jonathan Cho, very good at that. I am going down there for one day. I asked for a press pass, and it was denied. They have an appeal process. And when I emailed the appeal process and I said, why was this denied? They said nothing. They still haven't even gotten back to me. What are they worried about me going down there? Because there's only 3 or 4 people in Washington State that call them out on their insanity down in Olympia. What, me, Brandy, Cho, 1 or 2 others? That's about it. The Center Square, Carleen Johnson, that's about it. They're afraid of you finding out of what they're actually doing in Olympia. That's what they're worried about. And some people who are desperately holding on to the dying newspaper media are trying to protect their fiefdom by not letting people who actually report what's going on in Olympia down there to report on it. And it's twisted, really twisted. You better believe that once I find out who was behind all this, and I have a pretty good inclination of who it was, we're going to name them on air. This is why the media is dying. They could cover what's going on in Olympia. They could call out Bob Ferguson on his nonsense, and yet they're not doing it. Bob Ferguson doesn't want you investigating the fraud allegations here. Why is it that anytime Chris Daniels or Carleen Johnson ask him about the fraud allegations, nothing to see here? They ask Nick Brown about it. Nothing to see here. Washington State Auditor found verified evidence of problems at the Department of Children, Youth, and Family. Nope, we're not going to investigate it. And then all of a sudden, like that, she's saying there's no fraud. She's saying they're not going to investigate anything. They don't want transparency on anything they're doing. So Bob Ferguson is about to pass an income tax, despite the legislature voting against one last year, despite you voting against one 9 times, despite the Washington State Constitution saying no income tax. They're about to push this thing forward. Why? So they can keep the gravy train rolling to all these fraudulent organizations, all these wastes of money here in Washington. They want to take your money and use it on their stupidity. And we're not just talking about self-service stations for men that are art galleries. We're not just talking about trans surgeries for people who are in prison for felons. We're not just talking about that. We're talking about things they know are fraudulent because one of 2 reasons. 1, they want to keep their voting base happy. Two, they want to look the other way because they think it's racist to actually call it out. Let them steal the money. Let them steal the money. It's one reason or the other. Why do you think they don't want me down there? Why do you think they don't want sunlight on this? And why do you think they don't want ICE at polling locations? Jay Inslee said the quiet part out loud. He doesn't want ICE at polling locations. Why would ICE be there? You mean maybe to scare away the voters? Here's something else, my friends. Do we have in-person voting here in Washington? No, of course not. That means Jay Inslee is talking about the rest of the country. What, you think they don't have little meetings behind closed doors, the Democrats? There's meetings behind closed doors of Republicans. I've been in a couple of them. You think they don't have meetings behind closed doors? Of course they do. Jay Inslee didn't spill the tea on Washington. He spilled the tea on every single blue state in the U.S. Why do you think they wanted the border wide open? Because they want the illegals voting. And if you had any doubts before, 1,000%, you know they are confirmed now that that is happening because Jay Inslee just said it out loud. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Chris in Bonnie Lake. Chris, it's been too long, man. How you doing?
Hey, buddy, good. I just got a haircut, so I'm feeling like $1 million.
I hope it didn't cost that much. Yeah.
No. But, dude, a $25 for a senior haircut. I mean, I'm like, ooh, that's the senior discount?
That's the senior discount? What happened to like $8 supercuts or whatever it is? Is there inflation?
Right?
Is that what's
dude,
going on?
This was at Great Clips. That's where I go, and I get the same gal every time, and I get the senior. I look at it, I'm like, $25? I go, well, that doesn't seem like that great of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so since our Constitution is very explicit, no income tax, and Turd Ferguson stood up and put his hand on a Bible and said that he would, support and defend the Constitution of Washington State, should we get Hayward or Mike from the Article 3 people? When are we going to get it either an impeachment going or a recall? Because it's a clear shut case of, not violating your oath of office.
What about Ilhan Omar? What about Kashama Sawant? What about Pramila Jayapal? What about all these people who said they hate America? What about people like literally the easiest case is Ilhan Omar, who said she was doing all this for Somalia, not for the United States of America? That should be the easiest open and shut case. Chris, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. 5757. I love the people over on the text line who are saying, where's the polling places? We don't have polling places. Do you understand that Jay Inslee is so dumb that he gave this away for the entire U.S. for what the Democrats are doing? He gave away the plan for all of them. Yeah, it's not like we're going to put ICE agents at drop boxes here in Washington or post offices. That doesn't make any sense. He gave it away for the entire U.S. Jay Inslee, the gift that keeps on giving. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. Speaking on gifts that keep on giving, bad economy is now costing us more jobs here in Washington. Amazon's laying off a bunch of people. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. We knew it was coming. We knew it was on the horizon. We've been warning about it for a while, but Amazon has announced that they are cutting 16,000 jobs. Now, there are estimates about how many are going to be hitting our area. They are not all here. It's company-wide. It's across the country and elsewhere. It's not just here, but there will be job cuts here. On top of that, we already know they made cuts beforehand. Microsoft already made cuts. Meta made cuts. And now Expedia is announcing they're doing layoffs here too. Our tech sector, our golden goose, is slowly dying. Now, these cuts are a little different. Amazon says they are making these cuts because of AI and because they're in cost-cutting mode, which I understand. It was like a city you had down there, and now if you can have AI do some of the work you used to have people do, why would you keep the people? But what happens when you do that is now the people who had jobs can't pay for their groceries, can't pay for the barbershop, can't pay for their mechanic, can't pay to go to the restaurants they used to go to. So what do? They look for another job. And if they can't find another job here, it's not like Washington is really hiring right now, they go elsewhere, which now means that grocer, that mechanic, that barber don't have a client anymore. And this has a trickle-down effect, where now if the barber can't make it, he closes and more people get laid off. And if the mechanic can't make it, he closes and gets laid off. And if the grocer can't make it, they close the store and more people get laid off, and so on and so on and so on. Yesterday, Amazon announced it was closing a bunch of its to-go stores and Whole Foods. And I got to say, I was kind of wondering why they were having some of these stores still, given the fact that their whole thing is about bringing it to your house. If you can bring it to my house, why would I want to go out and get it? Now, that's something else that's going to have an impact when more and more people are ordering stuff online, which is good for Amazon. Less and less people are going to traditional grocery stores. Are we going to see an effect of that happening as well? This has huge implications. And really, it was Washington that did this to themselves. By the way, Democrats in Olympia had a warning far, far in advance. When they saw what Seattle did, they should have said, you know what, Amazon just moved to Bellevue. Let's not push this any further. They have shown, because Amazon warned Seattle, if you pass this head tax, the payroll tax, we will leave. And guess what? They left. Now they're going to destroy Bellevue too. Democrats in Olympia are going to destroy Bellevue, and Bellevue's had a massive surge. I love going out to Bellevue now. It's so nice. It's so clean. It's so populated. Downtown Seattle, ghost town. Lake Union, really ghost town, where Amazon used to be. So the Democrats in Olympia, rather than going, that was a cautionary tale, said, ho-ho, that brings in money. Let's do this for the whole state. Even though we knew that the money that Seattle was supposed to bring in for this, they didn't actually bring in the money they wanted, and tax revenue went down because of this, Olympia said, let's do the same thing. Instead of saying, hey, let's take a look at the budget and let's cut some spending, they said, nope, we want all the money, and they killed the golden goose. Let's go back in time to, 2016, 2017? Maybe 2018. What happened? You had a few members of the Seattle City Council go to New York, and they were buddy-buddy with AOC, and they wanted to warn New York about how evil Amazon is. Oh, they redid all our streets, and they built all these big buildings, and they had public-private partnerships on homelessness, and they created all this businesses and all this revenue. Oh, they're the worst. They're the worst. And what happened? New York City said no to Amazon. Now, Amazon just went to Long Island, and Amazon just went to other places and went to Virginia. You don't want us? Fine, we'll go somewhere that does. But now the demonization of Amazon, you're just watching everybody leave through attrition. You're just watching it step by step by step. It is 100% because of the failed policies of the Democrats. Does AI play a role? Abso-flippin-lutely. But this is the kind of thing where they go, if we have to cut, why would we stay here? There are other places that want us. There are other places we can operate. There are other places we can be cheaply. So now what's going to happen is you're going to have Lake Union and you're going to have Bellevue, and now the light rail's about to open. Who's going to ride the thing to the east side now that Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta are all having layoffs? Who's going to go out to Bellevue? I'm sure the homeless people will enjoy that light rail. That'll be really, really good. Insane. Absolutely insane. You know what's more insane? When we come back, my friends, it looks like Ilhan Omar was attacked yesterday. Or was she? We're going to Zapruder film analysis this when we get back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Speaking of rotten, slimy, and corrupt, let's talk about Ilhan Omar. Oh, no! Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yesterday, Ilhan Omar was doing this anti-ICE speech, anti-Trump speech, anti-Kristi Noem speech when an individual in the front row produced a syringe and sprayed Ilhan Omar with a liquid. Now, my first thoughts on seeing this video was political violence is bad. You shouldn't attack Congress, ladies. My second viewing of this video, this is the fakest looking thing I have ever seen in my life. Let's go through why. So this slob of a guy is in the front row and the camera goes to him multiple times and he's a shifty looking fellow. Do you know what a good security team does? And I assume Ilhan Omar probably gets a lot of threats and probably should have a good security team. You know what they do? They sit right next to that guy, or right behind that guy, or stand right in front of that guy, wherever it is, or you ask him, hey, this is the VIP section. Can we move you over here? There's many ways to deal with this. And how do I know this? I have security guys I work with. I know these things. I've seen it happen with my own 2 eyes. So he's left in the front row. Okay, you have a garbage security team. Let's do that. Second of all, she gets sprayed with this liquid, and her immediate reaction is to go chase the guy. Not, let me brush this off. Not, what is this stuff? Nothing like that. It's, I'm going to go chase the guy. Now, you may say that's brave. You may say that's bold. I say that's stupid. A guy just assaulted you. Yes, it's assault. A guy just assaulted you. And then you go, I'm going to go get him. When you have security guards in the room, let them go get him. Trying to look tough. Here's something else. When somebody was sending white powder to the synagogues, I remember this like it happened just yesterday. This happened right after October 7th. Somebody in the Seattle area was mailing white powder to the synagogues. And one showed up at the synagogue across the street from mine, and I came down there, and hazmats everywhere. Everybody's all over the place. And it was a friend of mine who was working in the synagogue office that actually opened the envelope. Now, he actually used to work for Congress people. And he told me afterwards, while they were hosing him down, and they had him in a shower like it was The Rock, like it was one of those movies. They're hosing this guy down. I said, dude, you okay? He goes, I open the envelope, I get the puff of powder, and I said, oh no, not again. But immediately they were checking him for what's going on. Now, Ilhan Omar wants to look tough, okay? I get that, but you know what you say? Hey, guys, can you wait 10 minutes? I'm going to go over here and get checked out, and we're going to make sure everything's okay and come back later. And she would have gone the, woo, woo, and then she would have come back in the room, woo, woo. She didn't even check to see if it was hazardous or not. Not at all. Didn't even look into that. That is emergency response 101. You call 911. Hey, a congressperson has been sprayed with this stuff. We should really check out what it is. Third, and here's my favorite thing. She's not pressing charges. In fact, the federal government now wants to press charges. Dude assaulted a congresswoman. You should press charges. Why wouldn't Ilhan Omar want to press charges against the guy who threw stuff on her? If it was me, I'd say give him the chair. Okay, maybe he doesn't deserve the chair, but give him the maximum. Max him out. So this whole thing makes no sense to me whatsoever. And then the more we learn about it, the less sense it makes. This is CNN.
So we have some news just into CNN. We were talking about the attack on Congresswoman Ilhan Omar at a town hall just a moment ago. Just into CNN right now, police believe the substance that was sprayed at her by this 55-year-old man was apparently apple cider vinegar. Again, you see the video there. Omar responding by saying that she will not be intimidated. You see the man being tackled there. He has since been arrested and is facing criminal charges. We have Jeff Zeleny with us. Jeff, obviously this just a pattern of tension and frustration and violence in Minnesota, one that has led to calls for the administration to get rid of DHS Chief Kristi Noem.
All right. Stop with that nonsense. Okay, so apple cider vinegar. Something smells like that, you should have suspicions immediately. But here's something else. Why did it take so long to test it? Why did it take so long? Maybe you didn't call hazmat. By the way, here's something else. I know that when I was running for office, people who were working on my campaign always had spare shirts, spare clothing. The trunk of my car was like a wardrobe. It had all this stuff back there. You're telling me a sitting U.S. congressperson doesn't change her sweater, doesn't change her shirt? They always have one in case you spill coffee or ketchup or who knows what. They always have something. And the women running for any office or holding office, they have more than a wardrobe in their trunks. Ask any one of them. They will tell you. Didn't even change the sweater? Here's something else. I don't know about you. The smell of vinegar really, really bothers me. Really bothers me. You don't want to get rid of that right away? The smell of apple, anything, also really bothers me. You put those two together, that really bothers me. You didn't want to change out of that?
I thought I was the only one. I really dislike vinegar, the smell of it, and yeah.
Yeah, vinegar really bothers me. Sea salt and vinegar potato chips, that's a no-go for me.
Same.
No-go. You know the problem is everybody else in my house loves them, and anytime they crack those suckers open,
oh yeah,
it's no good.
Yeah.
In fact, you'll like this one. Vinegar you put on jellyfish bites. When I used to work on beaches and stuff, we would keep these vinegar packets on the boat. Always smell terrible. Even though you're outdoors, you can smell it everywhere. The only other thing that bothers me that much is apple sauce, apple cider is also in my wheelhouse for that. So you put those two together, it's Ari Hoffman's worst nightmare. My absolute worst nightmare. You don't want to change, do something about it? I smell something, and it's not vinegar. Shall we just say that about what's going on with Ilhan Omar? Do you think this was staged? Do you think this was real? Look, political violence should be condemned at every single level, but something smells here, and it ain't the apple cider vinegar. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including Kanye West is apologizing for his anti-Semitic remarks, claiming it's a mental health disorder. Yeah, what about all the people who repeated them, who don't have mental health disorders, or maybe they do? We'll talk all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to keep listening to the Ari Hoffman Show because today we are going to be giving away two tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire in concert at Climate Pledge Arena on August 3rd. So make sure you are listening throughout the show for your chances to enter that keyword and win. Also, got another big surprise for you guys. Tomorrow at 4:45. Tomorrow at 4:45, even though we'll be broadcasting from Olympia, tomorrow at 4:45, we have a big announcement of something that's coming to KVI. That's tomorrow at 4:45. So make sure you are listening at KVI.com. Make sure you're listening at 570 KVI. Make sure you're listening at all the places you can get KVI. So that way you can catch the big announcement tomorrow at 4:45. Got a question here from Becky. She's wondering how I'm going to be broadcasting from Olympia, but I don't have a press pass to be down in Olympia. The press pass gets you access to the wings where all the press conferences happen and where you can go talk to legislatures. So I'm going to be allowed on the Republican side because Republicans are nice and taking me through, but the Democrats, they don't want Ari Hoffman in there. Can't imagine why. I let other media in there. They don't let us in there. They were kind enough to say you can watch from the gallery or at home on TVW. I want to write back to be snarky, what's TVW? But they know I know what for those of you who don't know, that's our very own local C-SPAN. That's what we got here. So I do like some of the other comments we're going here. Oh, of course Ilhan Omar is faking the whole thing because isn't she the one who's up to her eyeballs in fraud? The other thing, some of the things you guys are saying are mean. I mean, really, really mean. Some of them I can't read on air, people. Not very nice. So then we've got this one here from Sandy. Sandy says Swedish hospital also just had 2 rounds of layoffs. The second one happened last week. You mean that when you have less people here, they need less doctors, they need less nurses, they need less people, because guess what? You're losing your clientele. Yeah. This one here from Richard. He says, Vinegar, have I got a story for you? I was a photographer in the UW Daily staff in the early 80s. We processed the film ourselves in a dark room in one of our campus buildings, and one of the chemicals used is acetic acid, a.k.a. vinegar. Kevin, I don't know if your school had a dark room. The dark room where the photography club used to be was the room where you went to do other things. Now, there was a variety of things you could do, but nothing flammable because there's a lot of flammable liquids in there,
sure,
right?
Yeah, I never messed around in the photography department.
Neither did I, but I knew people who did, and I would not go in that room. I wouldn't do it because it smelled so bad. Yet another place I stayed out of dark room. I know anybody who's under the age of 40 right now is going, what's a dark room? Okay, kids, for everybody at home, let me explain this to you. We used to have this thing called film inside your camera. And you only got a certain number of pictures, and then you got to take them to a place to be developed. And then it was a huge deal when it only took an hour to develop them, and then you got back your doubles. Oh, my God. I don't know, Kevin, you ever have anybody in your friend group? My wife and I always like to do this. When somebody's taking a big group picture, we always go, I call doubles. Because, that's what everybody used to say because you would get 2 of every picture.
Right, yeah.
I call doubles, right. So what happened was the kids in the photography club would develop the film using all these chemicals in water. Yeah. My favorite were the disposable cameras where you buy that thing for $20 or whatever. You come back and you got a picture of somebody's ear. You got a picture of the floor. The whole thing's been overexposed. You don't have pictures of anything, and you just dropped, $20, $30 to have the whole thing developed. So you spent $20 on the camera, $20 getting it developed, and no pictures.
Yeah, you just cross your fingers with that. You're just like, this is probably working. Maybe we'll find out.
Yes. Now, you don't even remember all the pictures you took. When do you go look at your pictures? When you need to free up memory on your cell phone or your computer. Oh, I like that picture. Go there. Wait, why did I take this picture? This is the most holy cow. Is that Kanye West in the background of that picture? Speaking of Kanye West, by the way, Kanye West has a long article in the Wall Street Journal. Why is Kanye West publishing an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal? Apparently, he's apologizing for his anti-Semitic rants, including his songs about Heil Hitler. Yes, this is actual news. This actually happened. This is not a joke. He's now apologizing, claiming he has bipolar disorder. Did anybody not know Kanye West has bipolar disorder at this point? He says he hurt the people closest to him. I think Kim and the kids kind of knew this was going on. I think all of us did, right?
Yeah, I have questions about that because I know people who have bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And my understanding is and again, I'm not a professional here, but there's kind of ups and downs, right?
Yes.
Like so you kind of, depending on what meds you have and all this stuff. Do you know how long this guy must have had this fit of
since long before Taylor Swift at the Grammys or whatever that was?
He wrote the song.
Yes.
Recorded the song.
Yes.
Edited the song.
Made a video of the song.
Mixed the song. Made a video. And that entire time, no one's saying, hey, dude, bad idea. I think you're going through something. What are we doing?
So, funny you should mention that, Kevin. Because you want to say you forgive Kanye West, you don't forgive Kanye West. I don't really care. What I can't forgive is all the people who embraced that insanity.
Right.
All the people who said, yeah, I'm going to download that album, or I'm going to watch that video, or I'm going to chant it like Nick Fuentes and the crew at a club in Miami. You people got no excuse whatsoever because that song had millions of downloads. No excuse for any of that. You guys can't claim bipolar disorder. That's just pure discrimination and hatred.
I'm glad I got off that train like well before he went anti-Semitic. Like he just started making bad music, and I'm like, this is not good music, and I don't care how much of a genius he claims he is. This is not good music, and I'm done.
I am proud to say I never liked Kanye West. I can't name a single one of his songs. I'm sure I probably know one or two, like Gold Digger, right?
His first 3 or 4 albums are pretty solid.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just proud to say, didn't like him from the get-go, but that's because I'm not cool enough to know what any of that stuff ever actually was. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, the legislature officially will not hear your two initiatives before it on protecting girls' sports and protecting parental rights. We'll tell you the latest insanity, plus something great that Erica Kirk is doing when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, more of your calls, more of your texts, plus also some good news that a gender clinic is closing in our area. But before we get to any of that, my friends, now is your chance to win count them, 2 tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire in concert at Climate Pledge Arena on August 3rd. Now, when I give you the word, all you have to do is enter the word, text it to the number I give you, and you'll be entered in your chance to win 2 tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Do not give me your name. Do not give me your email address. Do not give me any other information. Do not enter it more than once. One time. That is it. So, today's word is brick, as in brick house. Not brick house, just brick. B-R-I-C-K. Text the word brick to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Remember that tickets go on sale at the end of the week. You can win them right now. If you text the word brick to 206-421-5757, be entered for your chance to win. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Josh in Elk Plains. Josh, what's going on?
Yeah, all right. I just wanted to bring up a quick comment about the Ilhan Omar vinegar thing, your favorite.
Yes.
I love salt and vinegar chips, by the way, but I digress. So I just wanted to point out that I've never been to one of these town halls or anything like that, but I could imagine that there's security to get in. They pat you down. They make you empty your pockets. Maybe they wave the wand over you. You walk through a metal detector. Don't you think somebody would have thought it was a little weird that there was this tube of dark-colored urine-looking liquid?
So, to be fair, I've been to these things also. You would think every time I go to one of these things, I'm shocked there's not more security. Really, you can usually just walk in. So normally I'd agree with you. I don't know what the security was at this place, but like I said at the beginning, a good security team will look at somebody like this and go, that guy is shifty, that guy is fidgeting, I don't like the way he looks, I'm going to sit somebody behind him, I'm going to sit somebody next to him. It took forever for the security team to actually do anything about it, so much so that she had enough time to go chase after the guy. That's where I got the biggest question. Look, I've been to Adam Smith town halls. I haven't seen security there. I've been to, who else did I go to? I've been to a few of the other ones. I don't see security at these places, and I actually think that's foolish. I think there should be security anywhere. The last time that Adam Smith came to our synagogue, we had more synagogue security than he had. So I'm saying is that I think it comes down to the venue and what they travel with.
Fair enough.
Okay. Now, I won't hold the fact that you like sea salt and vinegar chips against you. That's fine. Apparently, I'm in the minority on that one. Everybody else seems to like them except for me and Kevin. So actually, technically right now, Josh, you are in the minority. Oh, wait. We have a special guest in the other room. She says also that she doesn't like them. Now you are definitely in the minority. That is 3-1, Josh.
Man.
I'm very sorry. You lose today.
Thanks.
All right, man. You take care. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. A lot of you are asking me if I've ever been to a Somali restaurant, and apparently they smell really bad. Number one, I have been to a Somali restaurant. Wasn't kosher. I was meeting somebody there for a meeting one time. I did not enjoy the smells. Actually, Ethiopian Jews, when they were brought over to Israel, they were basically refugees from Ethiopia. And when I was a kid, the trendy thing to do when you're in gap year studying in Israel was go help out in the Ethiopian refugee camps. And what you would do is you would go there and spend the Sabbath with them, and they make all their food, and it smelled awful. I mean, for them, I'm sure it was very, very good, but it was not my jam at all. In fact, my wife was doing this thing where every week for Sabbath, she was doing countries of the world. So she started A, let's do food from Africa. I'm like, not Ethiopian food. And then when she got back up to E, she's like, maybe Ethiopia. I'm like, not Ethiopian food. It just smells. It's not my jam. I'm sure some people like it. It's not me. It's like, have you ever been to the Coca-Cola factory?
I got to stop you because we've talked about this behind the scenes. your take on food should just be thrown out the window.
You agree with me on the sea salt and vinegar.
I do, but I mean, overall, when you're talking about like other
ethnic food,
ethnic food and everything,
yes.
It's like, brother, I mean, like
it smells awful, man. It smells terrible.
But you can hardly eat anything, and you've even said like you have the palate.
I
of
have
like
very
a
picky.
5-year-old.
The smelling. What do I? Okay, let's be fair. Let me stick up for myself for a second here. You bring in the food. You bring it into the office.
Sure.
And what do I say every single time?
Usually that smells incredible.
Right. And you guys go, well, it's like, taco time. So it smells good, but it's not that good or whatever.
I mean, it's like fine, but it's like, but no, I mean, I very rarely ever get what you actually like. You know what I mean?
That is fair. But I always go, that smells incredible.
Kosher pizza and kosher burgers when I can
I
find
eat
them.
more
That's
than
it.
that. You don't have those options around here. I get more than that. Have you ever
One
been
day
to
you told me steak with ketchup that you were.
I don't have steak with ketchup. That is not something I do, sir.
That's what you said to me.
I cover it in barbecue sauce. Thank you. Not ketchup. Thank you very much. Yeah. No. So have you ever been to the Coca-Cola stores? Where they do the buffet of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Have you tried some of those flavors?
Yeah, there's some nasty stuff from around the world.
Nasty
Weird
stuff. Disgusting stuff. But apparently I'm not alone about the Somali Ethiopian cooking. A lot of you here say the same thing. This one here, Old Sarge from Tacoma says, I spent 6 months in Mogadishu. I could still smell it 3 years later. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway. Switching gears entirely, here's some good news for everybody around here. Tacoma's Mary Bridge Children's Hospital is going to be closing its gender clinic. Look, as I've said from the beginning of all this, if you're an adult and you want to do something about your gender, that is your business. Doing it to kids, that is a big no-no. Spending tax dollars on it, even bigger no-no for me. This is not my jam. Now, the Mary Bridge Children's Hospital said a few months back that they were suspending it and not taking on any new patients. Also, here's something else. There is not a single legitimate study out there that shows that it stops whatever's going on inside a person's head. That is what should be addressed. In a memo sent to employees on Monday, obtained by the Seattle Times, Multicare CEO Bill Robertson said, recent developments at the federal level have raised the risk that the federal government could cut off payments to the entire healthcare system if Mary Bridge continues providing gender-altering services to minors. This was an incredibly painful decision and one I wish I did not have to make. We recognize how important this care is to our gender health clinic patients and have a sense of the impact this will take on these patients and their families. Yeah, it might actually save some people. You realize that now you are stuck with this for the rest of your life. You have to take the medication, and it's not just one-and-done surgeries. There are other procedures you have to do the rest of your life. Look, when you get older, do what you want. But, if you want to get a tattoo, you need your parents' permission these days. Let's not forget that a lot of the schools have these gender clinics when they can start prescribing this stuff to you without your parents even knowing about it. That's why it is so important that we have in front of us two initiatives, one to protect parental rights, which is so important because right now schools can hide from you what is going on with your kids and not tell you. From the age of 13, they can go to these clinics at the schools. They can start getting prescriptions. And if the kid really wants to hide from you what's going on, thanks to Senate Bill 5599, they can run away from home, become wards of the state. The state can hide them from the parents, and they can go get whatever life-altering procedures they want, and nobody will know about it. Robertson warned that losing federal reimbursement would threaten the health system's survival without federal Medicaid and Medicare payments. Organization would cease to exist, he says. Hospital officials say more than 60% of Mary Bridge rely on Medicaid, known as Apple Health in Washington. The Mary Bridge Gender Care Clinic has provided gender-altering services since 2015. Though the clinic doesn't perform surgeries, it does offer puberty blockers and hormone therapy, which is just as bad, guys. It's not good for you to start messing around with this kind of stuff. There's a reason all these hospitals in Europe have stopped doing it. They don't have Donald Trump as president. Over half the states in the U.S. have enacted restrictions on the controversial procedures for minors. In September, the hospital cut its wait list of approximately 150 families, confirming it would continue treating patients already receiving medication, but would not start new medical treatments for additional patients. Quote, We only made this decision after extremely careful consideration of all options, he wrote, adding that MultiCare had held discussions with local leaders, including members of the LGBTQ plus community, about how to implement the changes and support affected families. The hospital has also removed much of its clinic's online information about gender-altering procedures. In January, President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at restricting the controversial procedures. In April, Attorney General Pam Bondi warned that physicians could face felony charges for providing the procedures to minors. State Attorney General Nick Brown's office filed a lawsuit challenging the executive order, arguing that it unlawfully seeks to halt federal funding tied to pediatric gender-affirming care. There's nothing affirming about this. It affirms what's going on in your head and actually causes huge problems for the rest of your life. That's why you see so many detransitioners. A federal judge in Seattle later found the order discriminatory, issued a preliminary injunction blocking it while the case proceeds. Brown is also co-leading a separate lawsuit over proposed federal rules from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, alleging that the federal government is attempting to coerce providers into stopping gender-altering procedures for youth and bypassing required legal process for policy changes. Here's the thing. Federal government doesn't have to give you money if you're violating this stuff. And right now, nobody can give me a good reason why you should be doing this stuff. Something going on in somebody's head. Normally, if somebody's saying, hey, like somebody's saying in school, I enjoy cutting myself. You don't say, here's a knife. If somebody comes back from war and says, wow, I'm really upset I didn't get my arm blown off. Yeah, that's actually a real thing. You don't say, let's remove that arm for you. These are actual mental health problems. And instead of helping them, we're affirming them. Oh, you have a right to that. No problem whatsoever. Let's affirm that for you. The suicide rates have only gone up. Do you think maybe it's also once you start introducing a new drug into somebody's system, especially a chemical imbalance, it's not going to be good for you? Maybe. The right thing is to stop all this until there's proven science behind it. But that's not what the Democrats want. That's not what the Democrats want at all. In fact, they want to continue all this. There's some crazy stories I've gotten that I'm still hunting down right now and doing some research into about people said, oh, no, the state's never going to take your kids and just trans them. Yeah, that's actually happening. It's actually happening. Need a few more requests for comment answered before I can go live with some of these stories. But meanwhile, this is why it's so important that parents know what is going on with their kids. We need to know what is going on with our kids. And the fact that this can be going on 8 hours a day in a school and you not know anything about it, right here in front of me. I still have this in my binder right here. The gender card that is given out at Seattle pediatrician offices. I will take you to the bottom of this here. You can check a box. 1, I'd like to talk about what you can share with my parent/guardian. 2, do not share with my parent/guardian. Hey, I'm paying the bills. I want to know what's going on with my kid. Then they have this. My sex assigned at birth was circle all that apply or fill in the blank. Intersex, female, male, I do not care to say, fill in the blank. Language to discuss my body. Please ask me about the words I use to describe my body. Please use this language when discussing parts of my body. This thing is filled with this, and it all links back to the Q Card Project, which is a project of Seattle Children's Hospital and activist groups. At the very beginning, it says, please call me blank here. My gender pronouns are blank. Circle all that apply for gender identity, trans woman, trans man, agender. Well, everybody's agender. Non-binary, queer gender, questioning woman, man, or fill in the blank. We are encouraging mental health problems. So we should really know what's going on with our kids, right? Well, looks like the Washington State Legislature doesn't want to have a hearing on either of the initiatives. The one to protect parental rights or the one to protect parental sports. They don't want to hear about it at all. So now that they've both been certified by the Attorney General, this is when they're supposed to be taken up by the legislature and they're supposed to be prioritized over anything else. Oh, excuse me, not the Attorney General, certified by the Secretary of State. This is when they're supposed to be taken up by the legislature before any other business, including their millionaire tax. What did the Senate Majority Leader say today about the initiatives?
In the Senate, those initiatives have arrived and they've been directed to committees. Will you allow the committee chairs to decide whether or not to have a hearing?
I think that our caucus is aligned completely around the idea that there's no good that comes out of hearing the initiatives.
No good that comes out of hearing the initiatives. Why don't you even want to talk about them? Shouldn't you want to discuss it? Shouldn't you want to have a vote on it? None of them want to be on record about it. They don't want to be on record denying parental rights. They all want to say, we voted for it the first time. Let's go back in time. Let's Go Washington does an initiative to protect parental rights. Democrats look at the polling on it. They go, we don't want to run against this. We don't want to have a vote against this, so we're going to approve it, and we can always change it later. They approved it before the 2024 election. It goes. It's law. Then you have Chris Raikdal and Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown and everybody trying not to actually adhere to this thing, stalling it out until they had another vote in the legislature last year in 2025 where they undid everything. So now we have to go and do this again. So now a Democrat can claim, I voted for parental rights. I don't know what you're talking about. Now shouldn't we let the voters decide? No, you guys changed it. You guys voted to take away parental rights, undo everything of the initiative process. They don't want to be on record about it. They are afraid of you. They are petrified of you, which is why they don't want to talk about any of this. They know that if they vote to take away your parental rights, which, by the way, most of them did already, then guess what? You're going to vote them out of office. They know this, which is why they don't want to have a hearing on it. And they definitely don't want to have a hearing on the boys and girls sports business because they know how unpopular that is. Last time we had Brian Haywood on the show from Let's Go Washington, the group behind the initiatives. He told me that it was a 60-40 of Democrats to Republicans who signed the initiatives because that's kind of the breakup of Washington. You have a lot more Democrats than you have of Republicans. That's why we're a blue state. So when you look at something like that, the Democrats are petrified of you and the initiative process, which is why they're trying to undo the initiative process as well. They don't want to talk about this at all. They don't want to be on record about this, which is cowardly. And they don't want certain reporters snooping around their business. They don't want people like me down the Washington State Legislature. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to be broadcasting actually from the Washington State Legislature, but the press corps down there denied me a press pass. What does this mean? I can't go into the wings to ask Democrats questions. They denied me a press pass. Now, mind you, they give press passes to other people that are coming with me, but not me. This is the same nonsense they were doing to Jonathan Cho last year. This is the same nonsense they were doing to Brandy Cruz last year. And here's something else. How often do I go down to the Washington State Legislature? What, once a cycle to speak to the caucuses? That's about it. This year we're going to be broadcasting on top of it. I went down once before to testify on a bill I thought was important. And now they're saying, nope, we don't want to give Ari Hoffman a press pass. Why do you think that is? Because they don't want people asking the tough questions. Seattle Times doesn't ask the tough questions. Most of the TV outlets, except for Chris Daniels, don't ask the hard questions. I think the only print/online one that does is the Center Square, which is Carlene Johnson. That's it. Aside from that, you got what? Me, Brandy, and Cho, and that's about it. The rest of the media, don't forget they get grants. They get grants to cover Olympia. You think they're going to write anything bad about Olympia? Of course they won't. Of course they won't do it, because then they're worried about losing their gravy train. They're worried about losing their grants. This is the whole problem with taxpayer funds going to media outlets. This was one of the problems with NPR. Gee, I wonder why they're so pro-Democrat, because Democrats always vote for NPR. Shock, shock, shock. Now, also, just a reminder, while we are down in Olympia at 4:45 tomorrow, we have a big, awesome announcement for everybody. So make sure you're listening at 4:45 tomorrow while we are broadcasting from Olympia for that announcement. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, when we come back. Democrats want to reduce penalties for sex offenders. I kid you not. That's actually a proposal down there in Olympia. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI today because we are giving away two tickets to see Earth, Wind & Fire and Lionel Richie at Climate Pledge Arena on August 3rd. That's right. You get those tickets before they go on sale at the end of this week to the general public. So make sure you're listening for the key word for your next chance to win. The Democrats keep coming up with more insanity. This bill we knew was coming, and now they're actually entertaining it. According to the Center Square, a Washington state bill would reduce the length of time an individual must register as a sex offender after being convicted in a net nanny operation while ending the lifetime community supervision. Okay, let's go over this for a second. You know those TV shows To Catch a Predator, something like that? So you know that the predator in question is not normally talking to a child. They are talking to a member of a TV crew or law enforcement or whatever the case may be, and then people go to confront them. Well, guess what? The FBI does the same thing. Okay, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, you ever see the Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes classic Money Train? You know how they were part of the D Squad, the decoy squad, and that way if people rip them off, they can arrest them, and the thinking is, well, if they were going to rip me off, better they rip off a cop and I can arrest them than ripping off somebody else. That's the same thinking here. The FBI knows people are going to do sick stuff, but at least if they're around, the sicko will hopefully find themselves in a chat room with an FBI or a police officer or whatever it is, rather than an actual kid. So these people are prone to doing this again and again and again. We have a whole island filled with them, McNeil Island, which the Democrats are trying to depopulate. So now what they want to do is make it that if you were busted in one of these operations, even though we know you have a proclivity for this sickness, what are we going to do? Stop you from serving more jail time. That's what we're going to do. Stop it. You kidding me with this? Net nanny operations, according to Center Square, are carried out by the Washington State Patrol Missing and Exploited Children Task Force, in which undercover officers pose as children to potential sex offenders. According to the state, between 2015 and 2023, the task force carried out 20 sting operations, made 311 arrests. Under current state law, those convicted must register as a sex offender and are subject to community supervision for life. Why is that? Because they know they are likely to re-offend and do it again. Senate Bill 5312, sponsored by Senator Lisa Wellman. Wait a minute, Lisa Wellman? Wasn't she the one who said we don't want to talk about fraud here, so we're going to hide all the information from public disclosure requests about the daycares? Weren't we going to do that? Oh, right. That's her. So now she wants to have the registration be limited to only 5 years and community supervision to only 3 years, even though they were caught, even though they were busted. The bill was introduced last session but failed to clear its original committee after a public hearing. In November, the Washington State Sentencing Guidelines Commission voted to recommend this policy to the legislature. You know who that committee is led by? That committee is led by a guy who's a lawyer for sex offenders. That's who it's led by. Gee, I wonder why. Because now he can get his clients off easier. Get them off the hook easier. This is sick. This is truly, truly sick. The Democrats are on the side of the criminals. They are not on the side of you. Yes, they are actually moving forward with this. Oh, and by the way, I got a little tip. We now know where they're releasing some more of the sex offenders from our very own sex offender Alcatraz, McNeil Island. And I might have that information for you tomorrow or Friday. I'll find out exactly when we have all that stuff for you. Make sure to keep listening to Talk Radio 570 KVI. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Mario, who's down in Miami. Mario, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Ari? You know, I was listening to your radio and you on the radio, and I was wondering, hey, why is Harry surprised by the criminal Democrats? That's who they support. They're a bunch of freaking criminals who basically are making it easier. See, here's one thing I learned over the years, the revolving door criminal justice system, right? They have corrupted the judicial system to the point where it's more friendly to the criminals and to the victims. Mm-hmm. And I ran into this issue once because we had a discussion at work, and they said, well, you know, you got to learn the rules in case, you know, somebody comes into my house. And they said, listen, if you break into my house when I'm there knowing that there's people there and I know you mean me harm, I'm going to unload on you as many rounds as I can, because hey, yeah, but you'll go to jail. He says, yeah, but at least my family will be alive, because I could tell you this much. The dead people, the victims get buried, and the criminals get all their rights and paroles and all that. So the victims' families are left to suffer for the rest of their lives while the criminals get to reoffend again. And if you think I'm kidding, take a look at what they just did in Chicago, releasing that guy for good behavior and who almost beat somebody to death on the train over there in Chicago. They released him because for good conduct and only half the term on a supervised ankle monitor, less, a year he served.
Yeah, look at all the prolific offenders around here. All the prolific offenders around here, they just keep releasing and releasing and releasing. This is what the Democrats do. So one of the things that's gotten lost in the conversation about ICE is that they say, well, we are cooperating. The State Department of Corrections is releasing people. Is not releasing people. They're giving them over to ICE. That's technically true, but that's not accounting for what the county, the cities are doing, where they're just releasing people to the streets. Mario, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Enjoy your time down there, man. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I love when conversations continue on the text line even after the segment was a few ago. I do like this. Maybe somebody's listening on a delay. The people are still talking about whether or not they like sea salt and vinegar chips, which is pretty funny to me, whether or not they like the smell of Somalian/Ethiopian food. And I am not in the minority on this one, my man. So I know you're questioning my food tastes in there. And then the other thing they're still talking about is dark rooms for film developing. So I think that triggered a nerve or a scent with a lot of people out there in our audience. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including your taxes. Democrats want them to go up. Plus, it looks like the Washington Senate is about to vote on that mask mandate for law enforcement and ICE. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, not such great news in Washington today. Massive amounts of layoffs, more crime, and yet the Democrats seem committed to doing everything they possibly can to make things worse here in Washington. Joining us now to discuss what the GOP is doing to push back on this in the Washington State Legislature, we have the Senate Minority Leader, John Braun. Thank you so much for being with us today, Senator. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ari.
Always a pleasure. Now, let's start with the life and death stuff first. We'll get to the economy in a second, but the life and death stuff is we literally have things that are killing kids. We literally have things that are making families less safe. It seems like there might be an opportunity to fix it this session. How's that looking?
One of the bills we're working on is a bill Senator Wilson championed for several years, and then I've championed the last 2 years, which would add fentanyl to the statute that for endangerment of children. And it's really an odd situation. Many years ago, this new felony was created. It included meth, but it didn't include anything else. And now, meth's still a problem, but fentanyl is a much bigger problem. And in fact, we have, more and more kids, especially young kids, either die or nearly die every year because of exposure to fentanyl. And yet there's no tool for authorities to charge their parents when they knowingly endanger their child by exposing them to fentanyl.
So I have a practical question here. Wouldn't it just be easier to say controlled substances? Because there's so many new things that come out and they all have new names and people can get off on technicalities. Wouldn't it just be easier to say illegal or controlled substances rather than specify every single one?
That's right, and that's actually what the bill does. It takes methamphetamine out and replaces it with controlled substances other than cannabis, unless it's a prescription. So it does exactly what you're talking about. It expands this and makes sure that we're using the statute as envisioned for whatever the new problem is after fentanyl, in the future.
Now, are there any Democrats who are really pushing back on this, or have they realized the body count the original version of this has created?
So in the Senate, we've been pretty successful. We passed it out of the Senate. This will be the fourth year. It passed now almost 2 weeks ago off the floor of the Senate. And there is a handful of folks who vote no on it, and they do it because they don't want to see any charge anybody for anything, and they claim that it's making an addiction illegal, which it's not. I mean, we've worked hard to get services for folks who are addiction, but the fact is, if they are endangering their child, that should be they are responsible for it, regardless of addiction. And we changed the bill this year to make sure, if this is enforced and convicted, that they have access to services. And we're not trying to, we're trying to make this so that it actually leads to a better outcome and ultimately, hopefully, keeps families together. But fundamentally, we have to protect these children.
We're talking with Senator John Braun, and now that we've discussed the life and death stuff, let's talk about what could be people's livelihood and the end of the businesses around here, maybe killing the golden goose. So today we got the news of the Amazon layoffs. A lot of them are hitting our neck of the woods. This is on the heels of Meta bailing on expanding out in Bellevue. We know that Amazon's shutting down some of their stores as well. Microsoft has layoffs. This is all really, really bad news, and yet at the same time, we are seeing a draft proposal of the millionaire tax bill that Bob Ferguson and the Democrats are pushing, and it's only going to levy more taxes on everybody and make things infinitely worse. Are they committed to this course? Is there any talking them out of this?
They certainly seem committed now, and this is in spite of the fact that they all voted to outlaw an income tax last year. And I'll just say, I don't think this is a high earners tax. This is an income tax, and it may be only some folks today, but if it's anybody today, you can guarantee it will be everybody in the future if they get this through the legislature, get through the court challenges, and hopefully, if it goes that far, there'll be a chance for the voters to weigh in directly. But this is a tax that is sending a signal unequivocally to people around the state of Washington, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, that you're no longer welcome here in the state of Washington. We're going to tax you into oblivion, make you uncompetitive in the marketplace, and drive you out of business. So you might want to think about going elsewhere before that.
One that's especially crazy to me is the so-called jock tax. So basically, any sports team that comes here, the players are going to be taxed for working here for a couple days. I mean, are we talking about doing this with air shows? So the Blue Angels come to town, we tax the federal government, or we tax the hydroplane drivers, or we tax the person who comes here with a booth just to be at one of these festivals. We tax them. Do we want business coming here? I mean, I think of Comic-Con. We're going to start charging everybody who comes here for a day some kind of income tax. Do they want business here? Do they even want to get the Sonics back at this rate? All of this is discouraging more business opportunities.
They are absolutely indifferent to businesses, and I got to give them one credit. They're inventive. There's not a they come up with more ways to tax the people of the state of Washington more creatively, and they're indifferent to whether the voters have rejected it, 10 times, like in the case of the income tax, whether it is unconstitutional according to nearly 100-year-old precedent, again, like the income tax, or whether it's just going to put people out of business or make them uncompetitive in the national or their international marketplace. They're indifferent. They are irresponsive to concerns about what this is doing, and frankly, what it's already doing to our business climate here in Washington. It is not a mystery that our revenues have plateaued, and I have every reason to suspect that they're going to start going negative in the near future because they feel like they have to solve every problem at the state level with a new tax, and it's just the wrong approach.
Senator, I've got a couple lines for you that you could use on your floor speech against this. So here's one for you. You're surprised there hasn't been a Seahawks tax, 12% on anything related to the Super Bowl. That's one for you. And the second one is you're surprised they haven't levied a tax anytime the mountain's out. Anytime you say, oh, the mountain's out today, that's another tax. Because literally they have taxed everything else, and it's insane. And actually, one of the members of the Republican Party is pushing forward to penalize people for their car tabs. And I don't think they realize, Senator King hasn't realized that people aren't paying their car tabs right now because things are so unaffordable here. It's cheaper to get the ticket than actually pay the car tabs. Pushing forward with something like this, I can't imagine it's going to get a lot of support in the Republican caucus. I assume a lot of them are going to say lower the fees for the car tabs. People have voted for this multiple times before, and yet he is pushing forward with the Democrats to make something even less affordable for people.
Senator King has done a good job here in the legislature, but I disagree with him on this issue. People simply can't afford another cost, another tax, any other item that's driving up their cost of living here in the state of Washington. The level of frustration, and frankly, people are taking action, and it's going to hurt us long term because people are and will continue to move out of our great state, and that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Senator John Braun, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for fighting so hard on behalf of all of us here in Washington. Really appreciate your time, and good luck with the rest of the session.
All right. Thanks for having me on. You have a good day.
You as well. Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a couple of reminders for everybody. Number one, we are giving away tickets to Earth, Wind, and Fire and Lionel Richie at Climate Pledge Arena on August 3rd. We will have one more chance coming up in the show for you to enter the keyword I give you for your chance to win. Also, another reminder is that 4:45 tomorrow, while we are broadcasting from Olympia, we will have a big, amazing, fantastic announcement for KVI Nation. You are going to love it. So make sure you are always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe at whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Today is the 40th anniversary of the Challenger disaster. Now, it's one of those moments where you remember where you were. I was a little kid. I remember I came into the room and my mother was crying. I didn't really know why she was crying, but the TV was on, and I love space. In fact, I was born the day the Columbia took off for the first time, so had a lot of space toys around my room. Maybe that's why I like Star Wars, Star Trek, all that. But I remember my mom crying, and I remember this explosion on TV and not understanding what any of it meant. Those are my memories, and I was a little kid. The White House wrote this today. On this day 40 years ago, America tragically lost 7 brilliant, visionary, and courageous titans of space exploration aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger. On this solemn anniversary, we acknowledge that their legacies will remain forever etched upon our nation's memory, and we recommit to advancing mankind's journey beyond the stars with unwavering strength and unyielding commitment to excellence. On the morning of January 28, 1986, millions of Americans sat in anticipation as a historic launch unfolded on live television. Aboard the spacecraft were 7 remarkable American scientists, engineers, aviators, and high school teachers who were chosen to help inspire the next generation of students. Just 73 seconds after liftoff, that anticipation was shattered when mechanical failures caused the shuttle to disintegrate into the cold morning air, transforming wonder and hope into devastation and disaster in a mere instant. Yet from the smoke-filled sky rose lasting resolve to honor these fallen American heroes by continuing their work and advancing the causes they cherished with greater care and unshakable purpose. I actually thought that was pretty beautiful. There's a longer version of the statement over at the White House website, but I actually think the greatest speech about this, the most inspiring speech about this, was given by President Ronald Reagan 40 years ago today. Give a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd planned to speak to you tonight to report on the State of the Union. But the events of earlier today have led me to change those plans. Today is a day for mourning and remembering. Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain with all of the people of our country. This is truly a national loss. 19 years ago, almost to the day, we lost 3 astronauts in a terrible accident on the ground. But we've never lost an astronaut in flight. We've never had a tragedy like this. And perhaps we've forgotten the courage it took for the crew of the shuttle. But they, the Challenger 7, were aware of the dangers, but overcame them and did their jobs brilliantly. We mourn 7 heroes: Michael Smith, Dick Scobie, Judith Resnick, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Gregory Jarvis, and Krista McCullough. We mourn their loss as a nation together. To the families of the 7, we cannot bear, as you do, the full impact of this tragedy. But we feel the loss, and we're thinking about you so very much. Your loved ones were daring and brave, and they had that special grace, that special spirit that says, give me a challenge, and I'll meet it with joy. They had a hunger to explore the universe and discover its truths. They wished to serve, and they did. They served all of us. We've grown used to wonders in this century. It's hard to dazzle us. But for 25 years, the United States space program has been doing just that. We've grown used to the idea of space, and perhaps we forget that we've only just begun. We're still pioneers. They, the members of the Challenger crew, were pioneers. And I want to say something to the school children of America who were watching the live coverage of the shuttle's takeoff. I know it's hard to understand, but painful things like this happen. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery. It's all part of taking a chance and expanding man's horizons. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave. The Challenger crew was pulling us into the future, and we'll continue to follow them. I've always had great faith in and respect for our space program, and what happened today does nothing to diminish it. We don't hide our space program. We don't keep secrets and cover things up. We do it all up front and in public. That's the way freedom is, and we wouldn't change it for a minute. We'll continue our quest in space. There will be more shuttle flights and more shuttle crews, and yes, more volunteers, more civilians, more teachers in space. Nothing ends here. Our hopes and our journeys continue. I want to add that I wish I could talk to every man and woman who works for NASA or who worked on this mission and tell them your dedication and professionalism have moved and impressed us for decades, and we know of your anguish. We share it. There's a coincidence today. On this day, 390 years ago, the great explorer Sir Francis Drake died aboard ship off the coast of Panama. In his lifetime, the great frontiers were the oceans, and a historian later said he lived by the sea, died on it, and was buried in it. Well, today, we can say of the Challenger crew, their dedication was, like Drake's, complete. The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God. Thank you.
They don't make them like that anymore. They just don't. Words that a nation needed to hear at a very, very challenging time. Where were you when the Challenger exploded? Where were you when the Columbia exploded? I remember that one a lot clearer because I was in college when that happened. Where were you on these tragic days? And did the words of President Reagan make you feel like you could reach for the stars? Because 40 years later, listening to that, when we play it every year on this day, it still inspires me. Give us a call or a text and let us know where you were when the Challenger exploded and what you remember about it. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, looks like the Washington Senate Democrats have passed the bill to force law enforcement to cover their face as an effort to target ICE. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, your next chance to win tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Climate Pledge Arena. But before we get to any of that, looks like a lot of you have some very, very, very strong memories about where you were when the Challenger exploded. This one here from Becky in Enumclaw. I was home with a new baby on my lap watching the TV and showing the explosion over and over again. I finally had to turn it off. It was heartbreak. I couldn't believe it. I loved our President Reagan. He was a great leader. By the way, half the texts that I got today are about President Reagan after I played that speech. This one from Dan Smith. Man, I miss the Gipper. What an amazing man and president. I know I talk about this from time to time. If you have not been to Ronald Reagan's presidential library out in California, it's the best one out of all of them. And I've been to a chunk of them, so maybe I shouldn't say that with authority, but I know it is. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. And you walk out of there wanting to be a better American. You walk out of there wanting to run for president of the United States. It's really amazing. Robin Lakewood says, he was in Denver watching 2001 A Space Odyssey on TV. They cut to the Challenger launch just after the explosion. Mike reminds us that the Challenger crew, they knew they were going to die for 90 seconds. That's eternity to a test pilot. There's actually an article on one of the other anniversaries. It must have been the 10-year anniversary, something like that, because I was a kid. And I used to have a subscription to Air and Space magazine. That's the one that comes from the Smithsonian. And they did a whole article on the recovery and what it must have been like in the cockpit of the Challenger on the way down and the recovery of the bodies. Very, very dark, but very, very informative. That's really just plain sad. Eric in Tacoma says, I was at Osan Air Base in South Korea. It was morning there, and I was just in disbelief that happened to us. It took a bit to sink in. Yeah, this is something that really just hit a lot of people. This one here from the 253, this one says, I was in Houston when the Challenger exploded. I was doing an internship at a medical center there. We were all horrified. One gal called her ex. He worked at a radio station to find out what was going on. We'll never forget. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Mark in Puyallup. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, thanks for taking my call. That was an unforgettable day. I was a senior in high school in biology class, and I was the one that would set up the television or any AV equipment if we had to watch any videos.
Mm-hmm.
So I set up the television basically right next to where I was sitting. And an Italian foreign exchange student was in front of me, who we were very close friends. We were all watching the launch because we were in Florida. It was the first teacher to be launched into space, so it was a historic day. And then we watched the explosion, and we didn't know what it was, but we were bewildered, and it just took all the oxygen out of that out of the class. We couldn't speak. And then later that day, of course, when President Reagan spoke, I was in tears.
Yeah.
He moved me to tears. And I still cry about it when I think about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. Those are vivid memories. And I'll tell you something. Like, I was talking to my mom, I think an anniversary or two ago when I played this. She actually texted me or called the show or something, and she was telling me that she was crying, and that's what I remember about this. And the only thing I have in my mind that really hits me that's something like that is 9/11 and October 7th. I mean, I was a little kid when this happened. I just knew my mom was sad. But now when you go back and watch that video again and again and the reaction of everybody, we were so proud of our space program and we're so pro-America and all that, that it really just seemed like it took the wind out of the sails. But like President Reagan said, I mean, the space flights continued for years after that, well into the early 2000s. You know, they didn't let that get in their way. And the question is, when are we going back for real, not just these orbits around the world? Mark, thank you for sharing such a personal experience with us. And to put a smile on your face, you're going to laugh about this. I always used to make fun of the AV kids. Always used to do that because, you know, the theater kids were so much more popular, you know. So I used to make fun of that. Now I am in charge of my daughter's AV broadcasting thing because she wanted to be the announcer for the school basketball games, and now I'm stuck doing that. So, yeah, I made fun of all the kids, and now I'm dragged to these basketball games all the time. Mark, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. 5757. This one here from Dan. When the shuttle disaster happened, I was in a shipyard on Lake Union doing a refit on one of the deadliest catch boats. All work stopped. We all gathered in the break room, watched the news for the rest of the day. This one here from Bonnie. Hey, Ari was going to Bates at the time, and the Challenger had its fatal accident. I was taking their television broadcasting course and unfortunately saw it live. It really shook me. I couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. I really appreciate you guys sharing all these memories. It's important we don't forget things like this. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from George in Kenmore. George, what's up, man?
Well, I was a young Navy pilot. I'd gotten my wings in September of '85, and this, of course, was just right after the first of the year. And we were all in the ready room down in San Diego at we called it the RAG, Replacement Air Group, but we were all learning how to fly the big helicopters, to get in the fleet. And the whole squadron was in there of all the students and the instructors, and we're taking a simulator questionnaire. And the commanding officer walks in, and, he had the old faded collar on his Mouton jacket, and he said, we lost the Challenger, and flipped on the TV. They had regular TVs then, right?
Yeah.
And went a dry into place.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And yeah, I think Scobie was a commander. Well, he's a commander. I don't know which ones were Navy anymore, but doesn't matter. And I think Onizuka has a statue down there, Museum of Flight, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they do. And also, when I was down, I went to Cape Canaveral. I went down to the Kennedy Space Flight Center, and they actually have pieces of the Challenger down there. And seeing them up close and personal, they have pieces of the Challenger and they have pieces of the Columbia, and it's really just seeing that stuff on display with, I think it's the Atlantis that they have in the museum down there too. It takes your breath away and takes you back to something like that. George, appreciate you sharing with us. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Rick in Frederickson. Rick, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. Great show. Thanks much. I'm old enough to remember all three.
Mm-hmm.
Apollo 1 went up 59 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
It burned up on the pad.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I was at McCord.
Mm-hmm.
I was at McCord when the Challenger exploded. We were putting supply line on the back of our engine at the fire station. And all I remember is just walking around numb the rest of the day. And then when they went back up a few years later, I'm standing in the club in Germany, working at the base there, and I was just praying when they went to throttle up, and it held. So they apparently fixed the problem they had with the O-rings. But yeah, those were 3 bad days.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I wasn't around for the Apollo missions. One of the things I always wish I could go back to in history is watching the moon landing, but those are incredible memories. And all I actually say is that with the O-rings, there was a drama, then a documentary on Netflix a few years ago. I'm sure it's still there, where they dramatized the investigation into what happened with the O-rings. I found it fascinating.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called because our audience would like it. It's got people in it. I think William Hurt was in it, playing the guy who figured out what was going on. But it was really worth watching, especially on a day like today. Rick, really appreciate you sharing those memories with us, man.
Thank you, Ari. Have a great day.
Yeah, you as well. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Looks like we got some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
Democrats in the Washington state legislature have now officially passed the bill barring law enforcement officers from wearing masks while they are doing law enforcement stuff. Now, we know why they did this. They did this to target ICE. But the interesting thing is they have no jurisdiction over ICE whatsoever. This is entirely virtue signaling from the Democrats in the Washington state legislature. Now, the House will pass it as well, even though the Republicans are not voting for this. The House will pass it. Bob Ferguson will sign it. And then what does that actually mean in practice? So what it actually means is ICE isn't going to listen to it. They don't have to. But what it will mean is anytime ICE is anywhere, you're going to have a bunch of activists with cell phones going, "You're breaking the law! You're breaking the law!" But you got a bigger problem. Your bigger problem is local law enforcement. When they go out and do stuff, and they're concealing their identities for safety, there are already social media accounts dedicated to doxing local law enforcement. And I don't mean like posting stuff they post online. That's not doxing. You know what it is? Posting their address, posting their phone number, posting other personal information, and targeting them. You know how many officers have had to go into hiding after a controversial arrest or something else? I remember during the Summer of Love in 2020, these accounts were having a field day. It was the most traction they ever had. And people were looking at these accounts all the time, and people were going to police officers' homes during the Summer of Love. I remember one video in particular, the activists marched to Mike Solin's house. They went to Mike Solin's house, president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild. They went to his house in the middle of the night. They went to city council members. They went to the mayor's house. They vandalized the mayor's house. I remember this like it was yesterday. So the real world implications are this is going to make less people want to be a law enforcement officer. Bob Ferguson signing this in an attempt to virtue signal against ICE. Isn't he the guy that promised we were going to have more public safety officers? Well, this is going to discourage them from doing so. You see a cop doing something you don't like, now their identity is going to be smeared all over the internet because some activist didn't like seeing what they did. Think about that for a second. And sometimes they arrest really, 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 really bad people. Now, mind you, in the course of a trial, can they find out who an officer is? Probably, sure, absolutely. But now you've got activists helping. This is a way to target law enforcement. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. Bob Ferguson was absolutely silent in the Summer of Love in 2020 when people were going after police officers. We shouldn't be surprised because Turd Ferguson was the guy who actually prosecuted police officers as many opportunities as he could possibly get. That is what he did. This is absolutely crazy that this is something they are going forward with. I mean, but not surprising at all. Democrats have always hated law enforcement. Democrats have always wanted to defund the police. Democrats have always wanted to abolish prisons. I shouldn't say always. I should say recent Democrats. Old school Democrats, they just went along because they're trying to hold on to their office. And they know that's what their activist base wants. So this will probably go forward to the House. They'll probably vote on it in the House. They'll probably vote. Bob Ferguson will most likely vote this thing, sign this thing into law. And when that happens, it doesn't even go after their main target, which is ICE. Doesn't even go after it at all. A reminder that tomorrow we're going to be down in Olympia, and I'm going to be broadcasting from Olympia. And we've got a whole bunch of interviews lined up for you, plus our big announcement at 4:45 tomorrow. Don't forget about that, where we have our big announcement. But I'll be asking a lot of law enforcement people, a lot of people who used to be law enforcement, who are now in the legislature, a lot of people in the legislature, about what this actually means in practice. What does this actually mean for Washington State officers? I'm going to tell you right off the bat, it's one more reason not to be a law enforcement officer here in Washington State. If they were looking to recruit more police officers, do not forget we have the least amount of police officers per capita in the U.S. They have now done something to make that worse. Last year, Bob Ferguson said his goal was to hire all these new officers. All he did was make it so that municipalities can raise taxes and not spend it on law enforcement. Democrats in Washington hate cops. They hate cops. They hate law enforcement. They hate them. I just want to call out the hypocrisy for a second, is that Bob Ferguson didn't have anything to say when you had Barack Obama deporting over 9 million illegal aliens, when Barack Obama praised Tom Hoffman and actually awarded him with a medal. Bob Ferguson was silent during the Summer of Love, didn't say one damn word, not one, about what was going on. Well, armed terrorists were taking over 6 blocks of Seattle and police were being attacked and demonized on a regular basis. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Scott in Issaquah. Scott, what's going on?
Oh, not much, Ari. How you been?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm good. I just got back from visiting my mom. It was a long trip. I'm tired, but I just was about to turn the radio off and heard you talking about, the subject that's been brought up many times about, the police, quitting their jobs because they can't enforce laws. They're bullied. They have no leverage anymore. The system is against them. And basically, I think it's kind of by design. The Democrats want them to quit. They want to create a vacuum. So all these immigrants that come here, like the Somalis and these drug lords, they're rioting in the streets. They're gonna give them the job, because the cops we have now won't enforce all these crazy unconstitutional laws like gun laws and all these things that these Democrats want to do. So they really need to replace our military and our police force with immigrants who don't know about how this country works. They don't understand this country. They just like the freebies, and they believe in communism. So I mean that's basically what I see going on. I've seen it for years. I've been thinking about this for 20 years. This isn't something I just dreamt up tonight. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people think about this, and it's pretty obvious
Well, actually,
what's going on.
Scott,
So,
I can prove you're right. And here's number one. There's another bill working its way through the legislature that would allow non-citizens to become members of local law enforcement. But on top of that, I'm going to add one caveat to what you said. It's not just that they want our officers gone, and you sort of touched on this a little bit. They want the kind of cops they want. They want the kind that will do what they want to do. So it doesn't matter if they're illegal. It doesn't matter if they're an immigrant. It doesn't matter if they're not a citizen. What they want is they want people who will carry out their will. And what do we know about military and law enforcement? Overwhelmingly, how do they vote? We know this. Overwhelmingly, how do they vote? Overwhelmingly, they vote conservative. They don't want that.
Basically.
Common sense. Exactly right.
They vote common sense.
Right, because they see what happens from these bad policies. They don't want that. They were thrilled when they got to fire a whole bunch of first responders. Bob Ferguson was thrilled about that because it meant getting rid of all them Republican troublemakers, getting rid of all them common sense troublemakers, getting rid of all the moderate Democrats. And who are the people who are most submissive? That's what they're going looking for. And also they lowered the standards on hiring. So now they can bring a bunch of these people who don't know anything about structural engineering to be firefighters for a building on fire. They can bring in a bunch of people who don't fit the physical requirements for firefighter or for medics or for police officers. And that's a massive, massive problem. Scott, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your texts, more of your emails, plus Marco Rubio just shows us why he is the best at all the jobs he has and how I kind of want him to run for president. But before we get to any of that, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, my friends, that if you want to win tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire on August 3rd at Climate Pledge Arena, keep that radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issue, so that way we can give you that keyword and you can enter for your chance to win. Well, Senator Marco Rubio, that was autopilot. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was up on Capitol Hill today testifying because apparently Democrats don't like removing dictators, even though there are a whole bunch of no kings people. I thought they didn't like kings, yet they have a problem with dictators being removed. Marco Rubio was discussing the operation to get rid of Maduro. Give a listen to what he said, because it's really amazing just the job that Marco Rubio is doing.
We made multiple attempts to get Maduro to leave voluntarily and to avoid all of this because we understood that he was an impediment to progress. You couldn't make a deal with this guy. Okay? This guy has made multiple deals. He's broken every one of them. As a point of example, he made a deal with the Biden administration, and here was the deal that he made. It was a bad deal. We knew he wouldn't keep it. He made the following deal. Pardon my nephews, his nephews, who were convicted narco traffickers, convicted already and serving time in jail. Pardon them. Pardon and release Alex Saab, who was his money man, his bag man, primarily in charge of the portfolio with Iran. Release these people. He, in turn, agreed to release some political prisoners, which he did. Many of them were subsequently exiled or rearrested, and that he would hold free and fair elections, which he did not. In fact, he basically disqualified Maria Corina Machado and any other candidate, and Edmundo Gonzalez ends up being the nominee for the opposition party simply because they forgot to ban him. And they forgot to put him on the ban list. And then despite that, he loses an election that everyone around the world recognizes an illegitimate election. So he's made previous deals. In fact, he's broken so many deals, not even the Vatican has been willing to interact with Maduro in the past because he's broken so many of these deals. He's just simply not a guy you can make a deal with. He had no intent of keeping it. What he wanted to do was tap us along and buy 3 years of time until he could deal with a new administration that he thought may be more favorable, et cetera. He was an impediment to progress. None of the things we're talking about now, not the release of political prisoners, not the transition of the oil industry to a legitimate oil industry, not the erosion of Iranian, Russian, or Chinese influence. None of these things would have been possible as long as Maduro was there.
Yeah, but that's Venezuela. Who cares? It's not America, right? America first. Who cares? How does this affect us?
If these ships and these assets were deployed in the Indo-Pacific or in the Mediterranean or in the Middle East somewhere, no one would blink an eye. They say, well, that's normal. That's what we always do. The fact that they were deployed in the Western Hemisphere was a shock to everybody because we haven't done it. In fact, according to Southcom, they've rarely have ever had assets permanently deployed to them. They may have been transiting through at some point, but not permanently deployed, to deal with a very acute matter. And that is, and these are, these things become interrelated here at some point, but they are separate in many ways. And it's part of what I was trying to explain to Senator Duckworth. We have a real reality in our region of these transnational criminal terrorist organizations that in many cases possess weapons that you ascribe to a nation state, not to a gang, who pose a grave threat to the national security of the United States, but also to the stability of the region. If you walk through the region, what is the primary threat in Colombia? Transnational criminal organizations. What is the threat to Mexico? What is the threat to the Caribbean basin? These groups have to be confronted. They have to be confronted forcefully. What's the threat in Haiti? To systemic collapse. And that is these criminal gangs that basically control territory and threaten the ability to even form a government there in that regard. So it's endemic throughout the region, and it ultimately impacts the United States through mass migration, through drug trafficking, and other related criminal organizations. And so we need to have a force posture that can confront that and that can provide assistance in conjunction with other partners. We also need more countries that are willing to cooperate with us and collaboratively work on these things, the way Ecuador is now doing, the way El Salvador has done, the way Trinidad and Jamaica and other countries, the way we historically have done with Colombia, by the way, and continue to do in many respects. So we hope Venezuela will be one of those. Imagine if a future, or even the current interim authorities, or a future
with Venezuela involved, where it's a productive member of our hemisphere, where it's a productive country, and you don't have a narco-terrorist running the thing who is on every sanction list. Oh, but Democrats don't want kings, right? No kings, no kings, no kings. What's the end goal here? What is the end goal of what they're doing in the Trump administration?
We just want it to be a normal, prosperous country again, not a playground for Iran, Russia, and China in our own hemisphere. And we're going to try to help them get that because we think it serves our national interest. That will require actions on our part, not money, But ultimately, that will require them. This is ultimately going to be on the Venezuelan people and Venezuelan society and Venezuelan leaders to make this happen. We're going to be there to help and assist and create the parameters for it, and we feel like we're making really good progress. If we make as much progress over the next 4 weeks as we've made in the last 3.5 weeks, I'll feel very good about that.
Done. That's it. Simple, simple stuff. That's your objective. No nation building. Let them build their own nation. We're not sending people in. For all the people who said, we're going to be at war with Venezuela, it would have been really, really short. Let me tell you that. We're going to be at war in the Middle East. Yeah, that didn't happen. So, could we be real about this, that the world is better off without Maduro in power in Venezuela and flooding our shores with drugs? Absolutely. He took a country, or rather Chavez took a country, and he continued it, which was very rich, very, very prosperous, and turned it into a communist you-know-what hole, a word I can't say on air. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Carol in Kirkland. Carol, what's going on?
Hi. My guess is that if you talk to, who is it, Solis, I can't remember, as far as the unions go, and I don't know if this is covering state patrol, if it's covering county law enforcement, if it's covering just municipals, what police departments is it covering? In reality, the mask thing, remember, under COVID became personal, could not be mandated. All that stuff failed in lawsuits. So there's standing law. Our Washington state legislatures, everybody knows, makes crap up. And it goes through and it gets signed and then it has to go to court. But the bottom line is we can't be without police. So hopefully the unions and the civil rights of the police of the individual policeman it's a clear violation. It's already been adjudicated. So to me, can you get some of the union guys on to talk about it?
Absolutely.
Maybe talk to somebody who's working on the civil rights.
I'll tell you what, just for you, I will reach out to ICE and I will reach out to the Seattle Police Department and a couple of other police departments we have relationships with. I'll reach out to them and ask them what this means. Yeah, but what this means in the short term, Carol, is that they may have to, look, you and I know how long it takes for these cases to go through the court, right? It takes a really, really, really long time. So here's the thing. We need these cases to go through. Odds are it will be overturned. But in the meantime, people are going to go, why do I want to work for this city? Why do I want to work for this state? Why do I want to be in the state while this happens? It just means less cops for all of us. I'll give you the last word, then I got to run.
Okay, I don't think it's going to go that far. I think they'll get an injunction against it because it's far too dangerous. It's crazy. Just because they make stuff up doesn't mean anybody has to do it for 5 minutes.
Yep,
and
I think you're 100% right. I think you're exactly right,
Okay.
Carol. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the protester. Bennett, I owe you an apology. I didn't look up that video last night. I will try to remember to do it tonight, and then I will get back to you on that one. What's on your mind today?
All right, Jedi. Okay, well, I wasn't calling to nag you about the homework, but I did see a picture of. I think there's a picture on your website of young Zach with a flannel shirt or something. So ponder this: if you're a Jedi, does that make him your Padawan?
Oh, I see what you did there. Okay, Bennett, you get to say your piece today because you gave me a lame pun. That's good. I like the dad joke. Very good. What's on your mind today?
All right. Well, did you ever go to my X post where I told you when I was down in Portland the video of the woman standing there getting pepper sprayed by the ICE agent? And this is still the pinned post on my X. So anyone listening, go to X. It's Bennett Hazelton. Just search for my name. You don't have to spell it exactly right. It's still a pinned post on my profile, and it's a woman just standing there and talking to the ICE agents for about 10 seconds. She never even raises her hands. As far as I can tell, she never even shouts at them. They just look at her for about 10 seconds, and then one of the guys, before he walks away, draws his pepper spray and just unloads it into her face. And that was one of the most blatantly unprovoked things I've ever seen. It was almost 3 months to the day before the Renee Good incident, and I would defy anybody to come up with an excuse for that. And in particular, I want someone to find an excuse for why that guy was not fired and was in fact not criminally prosecuted. For all the problems with the police, if a cop did that, they would probably face consequences.
All right, so I'm looking at your video right now, and I'm not even going to try and defend it. Wow, you got a lot of clicks on this one, Bennett. Good for you. So I'm looking at the video right now, and I think I told you at the time, I don't know what preceded this, I don't know what didn't, but it's not a good look. Okay? It's not a good look. What bothers me and why I think everybody goes into their corners, and this is a theory of mine, you can take it, you cannot take it, is everybody criticizes law enforcement, right? And then somebody like me is going to go, there's a few bad apples. I'm not going to say that. Every profession has them, right? Right or wrong? Would you agree with that?
I mean, yes, it's true that people say that. And then the question is,
hang on. Just hold there for 1 second, then I'll let you say your piece, then I got to go, okay? But here's the thing. Every profession has the people that don't behave the way they should. But if I say, hey, let's talk about some teachers and how we're like letting all these teachers through, I would also say the majority of teachers are not like those. But if I say that, the left goes bonkers. How dare you go offend these hardworking teachers? And I think the problem has become is that there's so much demonization of law enforcement when we look at select cases, and it is clearly not the majority. There's a lot of demonization of teachers, and I can make the case there's a lot more bad teachers than there are law enforcement, but we don't have to do that right now. But certain things are off limits to the left, and it seems like right now everything they do is trying to make law enforcement's jobs harder. And what they're doing is they're actually affecting the minority, not the majority. Do I think that somebody with a gun should be held to a higher standard? Abso-flippin-lutely. Did I say we need an investigation into what happened in Minneapolis? Absolutely. There's no reason not to. And it looks like the Trump administration is completely changing tacks and now calling for all that. I'll give you the last word, then I got to run.
I mean, I think all that is true, but I would never imagine somebody on the left defending a teacher who drew a can of pepper spray and unloaded it unprovoked into a student's face, even if that student was mouthing off to them.
Well, hang on. Just for that, I will say is that we literally did a story on the show. I think it was while you were out of town, so you might have missed it, about a teacher who literally beat up a kid. And there were teachers defending that teacher, including unions. I know they do what they have to do because they're the union, but a lot of it was covered up and concealed from the parents.
Well, at least that person faced consequences. I mean, the ICE agent in that video, the outrage is not just the fact that it happened. It's that there is no indication that he ever faced any consequences for it at all, much less got fired, and what I think should have happened should have faced criminal prosecution. And there is a real chance that if the administration had taken a stand then and said, we do not tolerate this, regardless of what federal agency you work for, this person is going to face consequences. If you do something like this, you're going to get fired. Well, it's possible we don't have the fatal shootings that happened about 3 months later.
I think that's an interesting line to go down, but we're going to have to leave it there because I got to go to break. Bennett, always appreciate the mental jousting we have together anytime you call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, what other no good stuff is the Washington legislature up to? Everything they can do to put your safety at risk. We'll tell you about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, it seems like the Democrats are doing everything they possibly can to jeopardize public safety, target public safety, and make it worse for all of us. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Line to tell us how Republicans are trying to keep all of us safe, Representative Cindy Jacobson. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Ari. We're a quarter of the way through now our 60-day session, so our short session here.
Quarter of a day through the session already, and yet we're already having all these problems. I'm just mad about this car tabs bill, but we're not talking about that right now. We'll talk about that later. So tell us what's going on right now that's putting all of our safety in jeopardy.
Well, first of all, backdrop, I'm on Finance Committee, and we're hearing a lot of things that I'm concerned about there. We're having a lot of new taxes being proposed to allow localities to fund their priorities by raising taxes on people, like a 4% tax on short-term rentals, possible 6% tax on utilities, and all sorts of taxes, new REIT taxes. So all of that is swirling about, and I am concerned about that. But what I've noticed the most is I think that we're not taking up things that should be priorities. I've had a bill out there, House Bill 1074, hit and run resulting in a death, believe it or not, is eligible for a first-time offender sentence waiver. And I just can't get that to be taken up anymore for people to take a look at that. Why are people killing people with their cars and they're allowed a first-time offender sentence waiver? I have another bill, vehicular homicide with disregard for the safety of others. This would classify this offense in such a way as to avoid the first-time offender sentence waiver for that. So again, vehicular homicide, killing someone with your car, eligible for a first-time offender sentence waiver. So these are the types of things that I wonder, why aren't we taking these things up instead of some of the things that we are taking up, like whether or not federal agents, can wear masks to protect their identities when they're doing their jobs.
Which isn't even something that our state has any jurisdiction over whatsoever. We're talking with Representative Cindy Jacobson. And I see all these Vision Zero signs in Seattle, so you would think they would want to prevent people from dying or getting hit by cars, and yet it seems like they're not so interested in doing that. But as I understand it, it doesn't seem like they're interested in saving any lives whatsoever. I mean, you talk about the Keeping Families Together Act, which has actually destroyed families by letting kids be near drugs and other similar problems where you're having these kids are overdosing because the parents are drug addicts and just leave the stuff lying out. So is that actually look like it's going to go forward with the fixes to that, or is it going to be stuck for another year while more kids die?
I want to talk back about I don't know. I've seen a fix that might be something different than Travis Couture's proposed fix. And I see that getting a hearing, so I'm hopeful. The Keeping Families Together Act, I voted for that. And the reason I voted for that was because I believe that it should be a very grave thing to take children away from parents, and there should be a lot of safeguards on that. But here's the problem. Never did I ever think that in any calculation that DCYF would say, oh, fentanyl in the home is not imminent danger to the child. Certainly is. And so we've got to clear that up and pass something that fixes that, because we've got all these child deaths escalating with kiddos who are under the care of DCYF. And it's despicable. And so I hope that we can pass either Travis's bill, House Bill 1092, or I did see another one come up. And I'm hopeful that we can say that fentanyl in the home is an imminent danger to the child and not use the Keeping Families Together Act as an excuse to not do our jobs and make sure that these children take these children out of these homes, get the parents the treatment or whatever it is they need, but get them out. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
In the last few minutes we have with Representative Cindy Jacobson, it seems like the Democrats are taking the side of the criminals in so much of this legislation and letting all of us suffer instead. What do you think is the path forward here? Because it seems like certain Democrats aren't changing their mentality anytime soon. How many more people have to die before they realize there are serious problems with a lot of this legislation? And meanwhile, they're spending all their time virtue signaling against the Trump administration, the federal government, which actually has nothing to do with us right now.
Yeah, I've heard in every one of my committees indictments against Trump, and we are not following the federal rules that he's laying out there. For whatever reason, we're taking a stand. Well, that is going to have consequences in lost revenue. But there's a lot of bills that are not getting hearings. encampment removal that I had, tougher sentences for, Jenny Graham had this, for repeat offenders, for retail and car theft. Juvenile offenders should not get 3 diversions before the prosecutor goes ahead and prosecutes a crime. You know, 1 diversion, you mess that up, and then, you know, the prosecutor should prosecute that. And that's kindness to the juvenile because, you know, they're wrecking their lives. And so if we nip things in the bud, maybe they can get off on a right path. Let's not let things go by. 1902, let's not have early release for people who commit crimes with a firearm. We talk about gun control. Well, if somebody commits a crime with a firearm, let's not give them early release. There's just a whole slew. I've got a whole list in front of me of bills that have just not gotten hearings or not gotten any attention. And I think it's, as I was entering session, and just at the beginning of session, I just started to think, this is really a pattern, and it's troubling.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because it seems like the Democrats just care more about the actual people committing the crimes, the criminals, than the victims themselves. Representative Cindy Jacobson, thank you so much for trying to keep all of us safe with your work in Olympia. We really do appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show today. And as a special surprise for all of you, I know some of you missed the good news giveaway. Well, today we have your chance to win two tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire in concert at Climate Pledge Arena on August 3rd. And you get to win them before they go on sale to the general public. Now, if you want to win these tickets, here's what you do. You text the word and only the word I give you to the number I give you, not your phone number, not your address, not your name, just the word. Today's word is brick, B-R-I-C-K. Text the word brick to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757, and you will be entered to win the tickets to see Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire at Climate Pledge Arena on August 3rd, before the tickets go on sale to the general public on Friday. So text the word brick, not brick house, just the word brick, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, all anybody can talk about around here is the Super Bowl for many different reasons. But I saw this story over here from King 5. Irvin Garcia was busy finishing medical school when a late-night phone call changed everything. In October, around his birthday, his mother called to say his father had fallen and could not move the left side of his body. Garcia, who is training in emergency medicine, immediately feared the worst. Dr. Sood confirmed his suspicion. His father had suffered a hemorrhagic stroke, a dangerous brain bleed that can be fatal or permanently disabling. Garcia said the experience was terrifying. Fearing he might lose his father survived, but the road back was uncertain. Physical therapy became essential, and because his father was uninsured, recovery became a family effort. Garcia brought his dad to Los Angeles, where the family worked through therapy together every single day. One unexpected part of that recovery involved football. Part of our therapy was actually throwing a football around just because that was something we sort of bonded over. Well, they threw passes daily, so we just throw the football, and he progressively got better and better and better. And the first time he ever ran was actually at the beach, us throwing the football. That moment reshaped how Garcia thought about family, time, and gratitude. Garcia is just months away from graduating medical school at UCLA, became the first doctor in his family, and his parents spent their lives working and sacrificing without ever stopping to experience moments for themselves. After the stroke, he decided that needed to change. When the Seattle Seahawks advanced to the NFC Championship game, Garcia quietly bought tickets. Told his father and brother they were simply heading into Seattle to watch the game from a bar, something they had done before. Instead, Garcia started walking towards Lumen Field. Standing outside the stadium, Garcia pointed his camera at his father. No explanation was needed. I just pointed the camera at him when we were right outside Lumen Field and just kind of look into it, and here we are. We're going to this game. The surprise quickly went viral online. Viewers were drawn not only to the shock on Garcia's father's face, but also to his vulnerability. Garcia said his dad was moved to tears, reading the thousands of supportive comments. Especially in a household he grew up in with a lot of Latino men, he said this isn't something he was used to be doing, which was getting all emotional. He said he's happy there's so many people out there being supportive. Inside Lumen Field, the moment turned into something even bigger with the Seahawks victory, sending them to the Super Bowl. And for Garcia, he said the outcome mattered less than what it represented. He said it was so cool to see so many people unified in one big area, cheering on our Seahawks. As the video spread, strangers began calling Garcia's father everyone's dad and urging someone to send the family to the Super Bowl. He said the attention they've been getting has been overwhelming. More than a football story, Garcia said the experience reinforced a lesson he hopes others take to heart, especially people pursuing demanding careers. There's a push gaining attention on Instagram to have the Seahawks send Garcia and his father to the Super Bowl. He said, both my dad and I have never had this approach of feeling like we're entitled to anything. We've always worked for what we got. And a GoFundMe has been created to help not send him to the Super Bowl, but to help his father's medical bills. What a great story. Well, my friends, that's going to about wrap it up for us today. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow broadcasting live from Olympia. And don't forget our big announcement at 4:45. We're going to have tons of exciting guests, tons of insane stories, and a whole lot more. Plus, you never know, will I actually get my press pass or not before we get down there? We'll have all that for you, plus so much more. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.